Hey, good evening, everybody. Let's make hay. It's always so reassuring, that first point of connection. So here we are in 2025. Here we are. And the non-dual being in us greets the non-dual being in you. Amazing that we never covered this before. It's so utterly and totally primal. So what is it, this non-dual being? Is it who we are? Is it what we are? What's our relationship with it? How, if it's what we are, how come we can go there and ignore it? How come it's possible to forget about it? To believe ourselves to be Fred or Charlie or Sheila? Which one is forgetting? Is it the being which is forgetting about itself? What's going on? And if it's non-dual, that would mean that it's everywhere in all places at all times. Meaning that I am what you are. We are one being expressing through amazingly different forms of suffering, different forms of quality. And this is hard for us to kind of climb over from the area of the mind which likes things to have a structure or a form or to perceive things as objects. This one being thing. Because when we go into our own sense of being, we go make a connection with this feeling of I amness. And we just go down the ladder, I am, and we just jump into the space of whatever that on earth that is. This being, this amness. And when we go there, connect with that presence of ourselves, this aspect of ourselves which is always there in the background. Not who we think we are, not who we've been told that we are, not a collection of behaviors or personal attributes, not an appearance, not even a sensation. We go to that place of our own being. There's a spatial orientation. It's interesting. Like, where do we go to find ourselves, to find our being? Do we go way up there? Where am I, my being? Do we go to the past? Do we go to the future? Do we look next to ourselves? There I am, being there. Sometimes maybe if we're beside ourselves with an emotion or disorientated, we might look probably somewhere into the chest area for this location, this central location, this center point. And when we come there, we find some sense of our own being here. You see, the word own comes in. There's something very intimate and personal about it. It feels incredibly close to home and very unique and almost has this sensation of privacy about it. Like my secret being. As if it's been hiding in the world. or hiding in the personality, or hiding in networks of relationship. But we come there and it's like seeing ourselves naked. It's almost like a shock. In my case, it's a bit of a shock if I see myself naked. But there is this kind of recognition and shock at the same time. It's like, whoa, something is exposed. The nakedness of being. It feels incredibly personal. And then comes along some non-dual teacher and says, well, it's the same being for everybody. It's the same one. And that's interesting, because how can something feel so incredibly intimately personal, so extremely close to home, and be shared by every other being? And could it be it's the same? Or are we forever separate and isolated from each other? And there's many, many, many beings, and they're not sourced in one being. We're not sourced in one being. And that's partly what's happening here in this world. We're born into form. And that's already some kind of great big occurrence, a big happening, to appear to be not just born physically from our mother and stuff, but to find ourselves emanating through form, to find ourselves alive, to find ourselves being here, to be here. Those early moments of being when we're very little children, and we become aware that we are here. It's already a lot. It's a lot, and it doesn't have really a form. We can say, oh, my name is Georgie or Charlie or whatever. I'm a girl or I'm a boy. I'm this, I'm that. We can do things with the I. I'm a child of God, yada, yada, depending on how we're brought up. But that sense of being, when there's a little child, we first look at another creature like a little bird, a sparrow, or an earthworm. We realize it's also alive. And it's looking at us. This is interesting because now we're before something. We are arrived, but it's not like it's an end point, like we just came into life. We're now facing another being, which is our being, looking back at us. And it's so easy to slide into identity and into difference, and to identify with the difference and say, okay, this one's a sparrow and I'm a human. This one's just an earthworm. This is just a tree. It doesn't count at all. To separate and to separate and to separate. But at the same time, there's an instinctive knowing from the core that when we look, we sit with our cat on our lap and we feel the purr of our cat moving through, the vibration of the cat moving through our legs. And the cat is minusculely aware of our slightest movement. There's a kind of oneness of being. We couldn't say, okay, my being goes all the way up to halfway into the cat, and that's where the cat begins. The cat only goes as far as her whiskers. And where they brush my skin surface, that's where the boundary is between my being and the being of the cat. We couldn't say that it's there because we're both listening or we're both looking or we're both touching. These are all the instruments of being. There's simply a pre-given oneness, a oneness of being, which we can take incredibly for granted. The cat is has sentience. as the same intimate, private, I am that I am that I am, beingness as we have. And it's very real. It's very close to home. It doesn't bypass the heart. It doesn't bypass the depth of feeling. It can't be caught with words. There's just this field of beingness. The one being showing up in two forms, at once one and moving through two different forms, two different emanations. But not so different at all in the end. It's all physical. It's all love. It's all in the field of warmth. It's all part of the same earth. The earth is part of it. And then we have this thing that happens where most of the time we wouldn't leave that sentence, I am, just like that. We have to finish it off. I am angry. I am scared. I am suffering. I am young. I am old. I'm concerned. I like this. I don't like that. I vote for this. I don't vote for that. These are mine. These are not mine. I must have this. This must never happen to me. And we get deeply, deeply, deeply entangled in this wilderness of abstractions in a way. And then it can be such a relief just to come home and have a cup of cocoa and just to be unbothered, unquestioning, being in this moment, just being what we anyway are behind everything. So it's tricky because all of these thoughts, all of these creations, all of these relationships, all of this action, this is as well. It might seem foreign, it might seem separate, it might seem alien, it might seem like this is the world which we don't want to be part of, but it's an expression also. So what's going on? So often, when we look in the realm of identity and consciousness, as creative humans, we tend to go in the direction of do this, what can I do? What can I do to get enlightened? I must do this meditation. I must fix this. I must fix that. We are very identified with being the active one, the doer. And then we get all entangled with doing the right thing and not doing the wrong thing. And if we do the wrong thing, we cannot be here. So we have to do something to deserve the right to be here. And so this doing, this aspect, this contagion of doing of the mind, pretty much sabotages our recognition that we anyway are here. We're part of this one being. We are this being. We are. Before anything happens, behind anything that's happening, after all the happenings have passed, between the happenings. The doer takes it up and says, no, you have to work for your right to party. Later on, you can just be. With a million trillion beliefs, being is lazy, being is passive, being is inactive. You can't just let everything be like this. It would be uncompassionate. What about the suffering? What about the injustice? What about the wars? What about people that might need help? Got to do, and you have to do it right. And if you don't do it right, then you cannot be. And you cannot be, this is impossible. So what you get is a feeling of badness, feeling of failure, feeling of wrongness. And that seems to have the power to replace this essential area of being. Only it doesn't. What happens is that the being immensely responsive just pulls back a little bit. It lets the game play. It lets the show go on. Okay, we're disguising ourselves as wrongness now. We're having that experience. Now we're feeling murderous guilt. Okay, we're having that experience. And what we want is to come to a situation where it's possible more and more to be able to be in whatever is happening, in whatever is being felt, in whatever is being experienced, to be able to be unconditionally, to be here in freedom. Now, this isn't so much a doing, to do this or to do that or to meditate or to position ourselves constantly in the chest area. It's, interestingly enough, more of an undoing. It's like from the head, we are actively doing, and from the heart, there's a kind of undoing, removing the obstructions, not believing in the apparitions or the images that come forward, or not buying into the emotion which tempts us out of our own center. Doesn't mean it's not there, it's just disinvested. It's not what we are, it's what we experience. And in this, a space opens up for being to be. And a lot of all of this obscurations, which seems to block at the naturalness of our being, they're coming from where we meet another being, another expression of ourselves. So a woman meets a man. Immediately comes forward generations of sexual trauma, gender trauma, envy, distrust, otherness, othering. That's a sensation to feel other than, distancing. And yet, looking through the eyes of this man back at the woman is herself. She is because he is. He is because she is. It is one form looking through at itself, reuniting it through the gaze with itself, through different forms. And yet all of these feelings and emotions come forward. They're provoked. And all of that is the field of creation. This is where something is being worked out, something very, very precious, which is how to be different in form, unique, and one at the same time. Uniqueness and unity. This great, charming development which is there through creation. How to even be able to forget ourselves in the wilderness of thought, in the wilderness of the world, and still to know that we are one. From the guts of it, because there's a space there, a space where we are allowed to be whatever we are without even knowing what we are. So we get lost in what we see before us, as children already. There's this great being called the school teacher. And then there's this other mini-sized being who's the king of the class, who doesn't like us. And these other two great beings at home, our mother and our father, and all of them are giving messages. And a lot of these messages about what's allowed to be and what's not allowed to be. And this conditionality that we're getting back from this miracle of another being, which is our being, looking back at us, we're getting this message that this part cannot be, this behavior cannot be, don't relax too much because something which cannot be might be. This is a little bit devastating. But then what happens, like a kind of magic, is that as little children, we can realize that we can get the sense that there is some kind of great being behind us, watching us. There are loving eyes living through us. Something much greater than ourselves is moving through our little hands, is touching the daisy, is looking at the sunlight coming through the curtain. That there is this greater being, which is, in a way, what we are, behind us, living through the narrowing of the individual being and moving into the world. And it's always, and it feels like we're being watched, or that there is, somebody's got our backs. Something has our backs. The gaze that comes from behind us, this gaze of this great being through the being which we are into the world, if the pathway is free. It's a gaze which is full of purpose. It's practically a transmission of true nature. And it's giving a kind of affirmation that everything's really okay. It's saying, don't be afraid. Everything's really okay. It's okay to love. It's okay to be. You can trust it. You can. This is yourself that you can trust. It's okay to relax this direction, and it's okay to lean back as well. It's okay to be what you are. You're loved. You're free. It never was the terrible thing we felt it had to be. This wrongness was only ever just an experience which we're applauded for suffering, for our contribution in bearing this part of the human unfolding. And yet, at the same time, here too, there's a need to remove impediments, because partly what's happening in the backside of the body are those old feelings, those old little shocks where our mother and our father or our ancestors or our background family didn't seem to have our back. It felt like nobody had our back, where there was a transmission almost like a curse coming through generations. So we closed down the whole back area. We forgot to lean back in the source of ourselves, in the great being. We forgot that we're one also behind ourselves, also in front of ourselves. We learned to distrust the immense warm wind at our back, and we learn to distrust the sun on our face. Now these pathways, to be ourselves completely in naturalness, to begin to allow the true being which we are, to be what it anyway is, from the place that we never left. This is incredibly facilitated by this simple experiment of leaning back into something greater and opening up to something greater. That something greater might appear as like a godly presence, which is a word for bigger than what we could imagine ourselves to be. But actually it's home. It's the home which is as intimate and personal as the one that we feel caught inside a little box in the corner, in the depths of a private place inside our heart. That's how familiar it can be. Now, the expansion of this being is just a thought away. It's literally realizing that it's safe to let ourselves be, not just in this dimension, not just in this particular area, whatever cubic square meter we give ourselves or square centimeter, but let ourselves be wherever our consciousness is. So if our eyes touch the trees in the distance, to let our being open up there too, to recognize that we are there. If we look deeply into the eyes of a turtle, to recognize that we are meeting the being of which comes through our gaze is meeting the gaze of the turtle, and the being within the turtle, it's one being. It's an incredible, beautiful feeling. So much information becomes available. We never get trapped because we are everywhere where we can be, and it's literally, there's a freedom there. We can not actually perceive anything at all without our being there. And when we are there, we literally are there. This is an incredibly beautiful thing. And it's not an alien thing. It's really, we are there as we know ourselves, and something deeper as well. Now, why can we really, really trust it? Because there's this middle place where we get a little bit confused, where the being which is showing up through us is showing up in a unique way in its flavor. So this particular wine tastes a little bit different from the wine of the neighbor or the wine of the caterpillar. It's an effect, but it's a little bit different distributed. And how can that be? If it's different, it means that it's separate. And if it's separate, that means maybe it can die. It's possible not to be. It's like you have a flame and the flame can go out. But this is partly because we haven't yet learned to trust this perpetual nature of being, which is to awaken and awaken and awaken like a flame. You make a fire. A fire comes from somewhere. It didn't exist. You strike a match and there it is. So where did it come from? Where did we come from? What's the origin? And when we disappear, when we're no longer in sight and the whole world is no longer has our being there anymore, are we gone? Like the flame, did we disappear? So there is this spectrum which begins with the point of singularity, which is ourself which is the source of everything. The continuous one, which is always here before it even begins to express, to manifest as a being, even in the most subtle way. And this is partly how we show up as unique, because certain aspects might come forward stronger and other aspects are held back. And then maybe in another lifetime, other aspects are drawn out and other aspects are held back in the unmanifest. But in this spectrum, there is an absolute freedom to relax because exactly what's needed of our individuality will be drawn out of us. And it will disappear to itself in the end as well. It's like a movement like this, which is anyway happening while we're distracting ourselves, thinking we're something different, and which has an incredible grace to it, which isn't small, which is part of a bigger pulse, a bigger wave, and which offers instant resource, an instant sanctuary, an instant oasis of replenishment. At any moment, to come into the here and now and just to say, I am, and just to feel that I am, that sense of your being here now. Just the I amness and resting in it. And this is a whole way. And it's amazing what can come forward. You can begin to feel the shedding of dread, the shedding of shame, the shedding of a kind of fear to be here at all. And maybe we distract ourselves. Maybe we just need to come back again and just let ourselves be. Maybe we need the support of some animals or nature. Or just the permission that it matters, that it's worthwhile, that this is the source of all value, that if we can give it maybe a little bit more space ourselves to be. That original I am, give it a little bit more space and a little bit more. And let it move into the body. And let it move beyond the body, into the air a little bit. Let our being fill the room. Let our being move beyond the building. Let our being merge with the being of any other being that shows up within the being. Then life becomes very, very, very interesting because we begin to find ourselves increasingly attuned to the quality dimension, the dimension of true nature, showing up in so many different forms. In matter, in liquid, in substance, in atmosphere, in biological beings. The fear of death goes down, down, down. As death becomes clear that it's something that moves through the being, as opposed to the being moving through death. It's an experience which moves through, like this, back to everything being okay, back to that big space where there's no limitation, no interference, no more work to do, just appreciation. Just a very subtle kind of unprotesting contentment. Kind of little bit of surprise that all of that action was all not really needed. It was always okay. You were always okay. You are always okay to be. The very idea that we're not okay to be ourselves is an absurdity. Okay, I leave it like that. We take a 5-minute break and then we shall meditate on being.
So, welcome back, everybody. So, let's move into the guided meditation. If you could find a comfortable position, position in which you can relax your body in the chair or the couch, the mattress, the floor. And just take some time to connect with the physical body and to feel the weight of the physical body on the chair, the couch, the mattress, the floor. And maybe it's possible to relax in this weight of the body. Maybe it's possible if we relax in the weight of the body, weight we can feel which is resting on the chair, the couch, the mattress, the floor. We can also feel something which is light, something which has no weight. And maybe it's possible to find in that part of us which is light, which has no weight, the sense of our being. And connecting with the sense of our being, we imagine that we are on the edge of a big forest. It is a sunny day, and we gaze, we look at the clear green colors of the forest. Before us, there is a path leading into the forest. And when we look at the path, we see the play of light and shadow of the sun moving through the leaves of the trees, reflected on the path. When we start to move, to follow the path into the forest. And we become aware of the smell of the trees and the earth below us. And when we slowly walk forwards, we can hear the sound of the wind through the leaves, this soft, friendly, warm wind. We can hear some birds. So we slowly walk forwards till we come to an open space in the forest. In the middle of the space is an old oak tree. Surrounded by grass. With beautiful white and pink flowers. When we look at the tree, we can sense the being of the tree. We can sense the presence of the being of the tree. We become aware that the tree is also sensing our being. We sense the being of the tree, and the tree is sensing our being. We slowly start to walk over the grass, the beautiful pink and white flowers towards the tree. And then when we are close to the tree, we start to walk around the tree to find a nice place to sit against the tree. And we found a place which is inviting us to sit with our back against the tree, a comfortable place, a place where we can rest with our back against the tree. Can feel the being of the tree supporting us through the back of ourselves. Where the being of the tree is blending with our being. Where we slowly relax into a oneness of being. The tree and I are one. At the same time, in this deep blend with the tree, we become aware of the being of the forest around us. Like the forest and the tree are one. One in being. And then we hear a slight sound. We open our eyes and look in the direction of the sound. And we see a deer. A deer on the edge of the grass, on the edge of the forest. We look at the deer. And the deer is turning his head towards us and looking at us. We sense the being in the deer, the pure beauty of being in the deer. Its presence. Its subtlety and softness. And looking in the eyes of the deer, we can sense that the deer is also connecting to our being. Curious. Stretching its nose in our direction. Sniffing. Connecting. And feeling the presence of the tree and the forest and the presence of the deer. And feel how the presence of the deer, the being of the deer, is so much like our own being. Is the being of the tree behind our back. And the being of the forest. We start to fantasize, to imagine that maybe there is one being just moving through all this life in this forest, to the earth underneath us, to the tree, to the deer, through the forest, through the air, and through the sun. And fantasizing, imagining this, we start to blend with this great being. And the atmosphere of this being. And sitting there with our back against the tree. And are aware of the heaviness of our body. And the heaviness of our body resting, leaning into the tree. And the lightness which is there as well. The lightness of the being all around us. The lightness of the being in us. The lightness of the being in the tree. The lightness of the being in the earth. Of the earth. The ground below us. And become aware that the deer is grazing, eating slowly from the grass and the flowers. Slowly stand up, close to the tree. We silently move a little bit backwards with our back against the tree. Now it is as if the being of the tree is embracing us. moving around us. Become aware of the height of the tree. It's like we're inside the tree and we can feel its branches and the leaves high into the air. You can feel its roots spreading out, moving also deep into the earth. It feels a little bit like we just a little point, a little spot inside this big, old, mighty tree. This silent being. Being one with its form, with its roots, its stem and its branches and its leaves. Just being. Then we feel that it is time to go back again. We slowly move away from the tree, still feeling connected. Saying goodbye to the tree. We can feel that the being of the tree is still reaching out to us, supporting us. And you're slowly walking over the grass with the white and pink flowers towards the pathway. When we are on the pathway again, we can feel the being, the earth underneath our feet, and the being of the trees, the forest around us. Can even feel the beings of the birds singing in the trees around us. Slowly, we are walking to the edge of the forest again. And coming at the edge of the forest, we move back to the place where we started this adventure. We feel ourselves sitting on the chair again. Feel the weight of our body on the couch, on the mattress, on the floor. And at the same time, we still have a sense of the lightness of being of the forest, of the earth, the lightness of being of us, the sunny atmosphere. Okay, well, we slowly are coming back to the here and now. We're saying goodbye to the people on the live stream. It's so nice that you were here, and it is so nice to feel your presence. And we wish you a very beautiful week, and we hope to experience to feel you again next week. Bye.